Okay, so hello everyone, and today I'll show you the game Fabiano Caruana against Maxime Vachier-Lagrave. They just ended their game. They played like for hours and hours and hours, and now they finally ended their game, and it was so exciting, like from the very beginning till the very end. Let's just dive into it. So what made me very exciting is that we had a neither poison pawn variation on the board, which goes e4, c5, knight f3, we have the move d6, now d4, this is called the open Sicilian, takes on d4, takes on d4, knight f6, and knight to c3. And now, the typical move of the Najdorf, we have the move a6. The poison pawn variation is in the main line, bishop to g5, this is the main line Najdorf, you have e6, now f4, and now queen b6. This is very sharp play. As you can see, black just brought out his queen to attack this pawn here on b2. And so a possible line for white would be to play rook to b1 and simply defend his pawn. Fabiano is here to win this tournament because he wants to play against Magnus Carlsen, and therefore he also wants to play some more risky games and some sharp stuff. Of course, he will go for the real poison pawn variation, which is queen to d2, simply giving up this pawn. He doesn't even care about material. And this is very sharp, and the preparation of Fabiano is insane, as you will see. So we have queen to b2. He's kind of saying to Caruana, like, okay, I'm accepting your challenge. We have rook to b1, attacking the queen, and now actually Fabi played another game in Tata Steel against Maxime, and now in the same year he played bishop to e2 very successfully. He won that game against MVL, but today he decides to not go for this move bishop to e2, also not for f5, which is another move he can do, but he goes for another very sharp line, pawn to e5. And so basically here what you can do is something like takes and h6, for example. MVL basically does the same. He first goes for a6 and afterwards he decides to trade everything. It's basically the same but another move order. So we have h6, we have bishop to h4, and now we take. He takes the pawn, white takes back. White has to retreat his knight since it's attacked, so we have knight to d7. Now Fabi goes for this move, knight to e4, creating possibilities of potentially jumping into this square, kind of just bringing all of his pieces to the party here. We can see stuff after rook d1 coming here on the d file with this bishop also looking there. It's gonna be very dangerous. So what we see here, and MVL is still in his prep, we have queen takes on a2. He just takes another pawn. If he can take a pawn, he takes a pawn, and of course he knows what he's doing. As I said, this rook, he also wants to join the party. Rook to d1. We have now all of these pieces looking at this king over here on e8, and this looks very dangerous. Brings back his queen, queen to d5. This is still like theory or like preparation, but of course, you know, if you play the poison pawn with black, you need to know all this stuff or you get mated. And so here we have queen to e3, which for these players is still well known. Maxime Vachier-Lagrave still has games in this variation, and it even doesn't stop here. It stops after queen to e5. This has been played in 2 other of Maxime's games. So this is already like move 15, but Maxime has still 2 games in this. One from 2015, another one against our good friend Anish, which he played in 2019. And in these games, we had the move bishop to e2, which is very much possible in this position. In the game though, c3 was played, and so why do you play one of these moves? Let's say you do something random. Let's say you do a move like h3, which would make no sense. We have this move, attacking the king, bishop to b4. And well, now white, after something like c3, could simply take that piece, and of course he can't take with the knight because the queen is hanging, and after something like this and this is with check, and this is simply winning for black. Let's say in this position, and not the move h3, but actually bishop to e2, what this is doing is, for example, after this, now after takes, of course this, it's not with check, and now we can actually take the bishop, because the bishop is blocking this from having a check. So you can see that the nuances of these positions, and by the way this is mate, but what c3 is doing basically, and now you can see what it's doing, it's basically stopping this move. So that's why Fabi played the move c3, and he's still in his preparation, which is insane because we're on move 16. So now MVL played bishop to c5. You might call this already a little bit dubious. Maybe better would have been to play bishop to e7, but again, it's just very hard to play this position after c3. Probably he's not anymore in preparation, and Fabiano Caruana is. So he plays this move. So here, apparently Caruana is still in preparation, which is insane. He plays bishop to g3, attacking the queen. We have queen to d5. Of course, he needs to step away because the queen was attacked. And now we have this move bishop to c4, which Lichess would say is a blunder move. But basically Lichess doesn't understand that Fabiano Caruana had prepared this. So okay, it's pretty funny actually that Lichess says this is a blunder move, when actually this was the whole preparation of Caruana. And maybe objectively it's not working, but as you will see, it's super sharp. So maybe a bit better would have been to play something like this. But basically, I'll tell you, why would you play something like this? The whole point is, after the queen takes, now bishop d6 is played. And why is this good? Basically, what white is doing is it's stopping the black king from castling. And of course, you can't take that bishop if you thought you could, because look at this, this is a fork. You lose your queen and you lose the game. This is of course not possible. He can't take the bishop, and this is practically very hard. And also MVL found both the objectively best option to play for black. He simply said, I don't care anymore about this bishop. He could go wild with moves like this, which are like saying like, I want to save my bishop. No, MVL is like a humble guy. He says, no, you can take it. You showed some prep. Okay, it's fine. I'm scared. I don't want to save my bishop and go mate afterwards. Because, for example, after these lines, what white could decide and do is just bring his bishop back with the idea of plumping a knight here on this d6 square, which would be huge for white. And well, this is very difficult for black to play, because again, look at this, black can't castle. So very sharp play. So after this move, MVL simply plays this, and he says like, okay, I mean, you can have my bishop, you can just have it. I don't care about material, I just want me to be kind of safe. We have knight to d5 attacking the queen and placing the knight on a very nice square. We have queen there, which is very logical. Here, like, Fabiano played these moves very quickly, so I assume he was still at this moment in preparation, which is huge. He's attacking this, he's attacking there, he's threatening to take on e6 after takes knight takes, which happened in the game. This is still like so sharp, even though like black has given up one of his pieces. This is still very sharp and very difficult. So what we see is it's impossible for black to defend against all of these threats, as I just showed. And so what black decides is, okay, I just defend against this one and just defend my g7 pawn, which was a good move. And now we have this one, knight takes on e6, and this is just crazy. Knight takes on e6, Fabiano still like play this move instantly. How can you play this move instantly on move 22? He had, if I remember correctly, like an hour and 44 minutes or something. Like what? This guy is not a human. I mean, look at this. This move, it's move 22, and he plays this move like instantly. This is just like, I don't know, this is insane. So we have takes, we have knight takes, and now basically what MVL does, he says, okay, these pieces look dangerous, I just want to take here and trade off the queens, because I don't want to get mated here. Trading off pieces is a good deal for him. Basically what happens now is, so there is a queen trade, knight takes. At the end of the line, we have this, forking both the king and the rook, which gains some material back for Fabi. I think this is by far the safest. Now we have rook to d3 because, again, this rook was attacked, and basically you also need to know that this rook you can take like anytime you want, basically. We have rook to d3. We have knight to e4, and this is again like marked as dubious, which I think is Lichess suggests this move, getting away of this threat, rook a7, but I mean the engine calls it dubious, but it's still like pretty much equal. Now we have the move castles, which is very nice, castling with check, as you can see. Now we have the move king to g6, and now eventually, I mean, white has to take the rook at some time, you know. He does it now. And now I think this is the first like inaccuracy by MVL. Even though now, which is pretty weird, Lichess doesn't mark it as dubious now, which I think is weird. And here I watched also the live stream by chess.com and chess24. Anand suggested here, which is very interesting but very sharp still, to go for this plan, because basically what Anand says is these pawns are on the same color of my bishop, and if I can get my bishop here on c6, these pawns are like safe forever. The bishop stands very nice on this long diagonal. After this plan, what we can do is we can move our knight like this, which is very nice because now both of these knights are coordinating very well, because knights always have the tendency to want to protect each other, and that's also where they work together best. Instead, what MVL does, which I think is still very natural, is simply to develop this knight. Kind of awkward for the pawns and both these knights, because since they are not protecting each other, also this one, which would be a strong knight if the knight was there, because then they're protecting each other. Now this one is a little bit loose. These pawns are potentially loose because this bishop can't stay his whole life on c8. From here, I think Fabiano showed some beautiful technique. He simply retreats his knight to b6. Now rook to d8. Of course, MVL wants to get his rook active, as well as pinning this bishop here on the d file. Now we have knight take on c8, taking the bishop, rook takes back, and now the move bishop to a3, which again, Lichess marks as dubious. Probably better if you just go back would have been to play something like this, simply attacking the pawn. But I think these are just details. I mean, this one is very logical plan in actual fact, because what is now his plan? Since now, actually all of these pawns are potential targets. Mostly these, because these are on dark squares, and this is a dark square bishop, and so he can attack those. Rook to c7, now rook to f4, he's attacking the knight needs to step away. Now we have bishop to b2, maybe now the knight is kind of protecting these, but there's always the threat of taking these, takes back, and these pawns can be loose since they are not protecting each other. Knight e7, you know, you can see he's trying to coordinate both of these knights, because in this position they're not working together, so he's trying to work on that. And now we actually have this move, bishop takes f6, pawn takes f6, and now not immediately this move, but rather first this move, h4, taking space, we have h5, and now we have this move, rook to g3 check, attacking the king. The king has to step back. Beautiful tactical move, rook to g5. You can't take the rook because it's pinned. You first kind of want to give this check here on c1 before moving there and attacking the rook. Let me explain. This move you really want to do because you're attacking the rook and you're attacking the pawn, but at the end of the line this rook could be hanging. So for example, this is something we could see. Now this, it's still not lost because you can still give this check with the rook. But for example, if you would take this rook, now this is possible, and now you lose the rook with black. So you need to still kind of be careful there in these lines. And so probably most precise, which MVL did, is to first just give this check, not to allow any sort of tricks here on the 7th rank. So this is what was played. We have king to h2. Now we have the move knight to g6. So this is more precise. And now, of course, the rook is attacked. Fabi just steps back. Knight takes on h4, and white does the same. Rook takes a5, not only attacking this knight, but also threatening rook to h7. We have knight to g6, rook to h7, and now king to e6, and rook takes on b7. Maxime should be able to hold it, but practically it's very tricky actually to play this. Let me explain. Let's just look at what happened in the game. We have knight to e5, improving the knight, rook to b6, attacking both of these. In the game, MVL went for this move and the rooks were traded. And I think this was actually a practical mistake. Maybe, I don't even know. I analyzed this position also on the live streams, both chess.com, chess24. They were analyzing this and it's very unclear. Also, the engine doesn't really know what this is. Basically, what will happen is white is able to win back this pawn, whatever happens. But basically, I don't think this was a good practical chance. Probably MVL shouldn't have gone for this, but it's still just very difficult. So this very understandable. He kind of wants to simplify. And it looks like also black should have some sort of fortress to hold it. But practically, it's just very, very hard. King to g3, now king to f7, rook to c2, which again, this is called an inaccuracy, but I don't really agree with that. We have knight to b4. Now we have just back because the rook was attacked. And you know, they're just playing around a little bit. Knight to c6, king to f4, king there, rook to d6. And now it would actually be a mistake for black to somehow clamp on to this pawn. Let's say he goes there, because now it's already completely winning. Reason being is that this comes and this comes. Let's say pawn there, we have already b5. We're simply going to win this one with either the pawn or the rook. And this is completely winning because this one will eventually be able to promote. Let's say you say, well, I don't move one of these pieces, I simply move the king. Then what I'll do is I'll come here and I'll take this one. And again, I'll promote my pawn. You know, but of course MVL doesn't fall for that. And he actually plays this move. Also, by the way, this is called an inaccuracy by Lichess. I'm so sorry for that. I will try and maybe delete this. I don't know. Okay, anyway. We have knight to e5 and takes, which also is an inaccuracy. Simply taking the pawn. I don't know what Lichess is saying here. Like we have here just some, you know, Fabiano is just trying. King e4, it's not a mistake at all. He's simply trying. It's impossible to play like a bad move here for white. It's more up to black to like make a small inaccuracy in order to give white the opportunity to go for some plan. Okay, so we have knight to h6. Now we have rook to a5. So Fabiano is trying out different plans. Knight to f7, rook to a3. They are both kind of trying to figure out what's actually happening here. We have this move, king to f4, knight f5. After this move, maybe you can hold this because of the reason that the knight is controlling these squares, the pawn is controlling these squares, and now the king can't come in any way. You know, what was played in the game was knight to h6. Now we have rook to g3 check, king to f7, the move king to e4, knight here, king to f5, and they're just playing around a little bit, trying to figure out what exactly is going on. The engine is like flipping the whole time, like he has no idea what's going on. Like no one really has an idea what this is. It's just very hard. King there, king g6, king f3, we have king f7, and I'm almost at the position I want to reach, which is a little bit more clear. They're basically trying out different things. Fabiano is also trying to win some tempos here. Very difficult position. There, this, we are almost there. This, there, knight to g8. Now we have this move, this one, and now we have the move rook to a3. This might still be something you can hold actually. I think the engine suggests to play this move. What was played in the game was this move, king to f7, which is a pretty clear blunder because of this move, not king to f5, but king to f4. I mean, you can analyze all these lines at home if you want, but it's very difficult, and I think you can't blame MVL. You can study hours and hours on this. It's really difficult. And this is a win for white now. After this, we have this move, and now everything is in zugzwang, and basically black can't play a good move. This move, now white's plan is to come around, king to g4, knight there, king there. So now this move is played, which is also called a mistake, but at this point it's actually already winning for white. We have rook there, king e6. Well, basically black doesn't have many moves here. g4 first, just protecting this square, kind of a waiting move actually. The reason being mostly that after, for example, a move like this, still, for example, this could be played, and after this, maybe this. He has a lot of checks, so that might be a little bit awkward. So instead, white wants to wait with this move. First plays g4, now king e5, and now this move is very much playable. And actually on this moment, Maxime Vachier-Lagrave decided to resign. The reason being that after this move, we have king to g7. And now after, for example, king back, now we have this move taking the knight and taking the pawn afterwards. So let's say this, he has to go back somewhere. There, takes. And the pawn will run, and this is winning. Or let's say in this position he doesn't go there and he doesn't allow this trick. Let's say, for example, he goes back there. Now we can just play some other waiting move. He has to go back there. Only move is again to go somewhere there. And now pin this knight to the king. After something like this, take, we're in the same line and white will promote. So yeah, I hope you enjoyed, and I hope to see you, as always, in the next one. Bye!